Mixing pattern paper should be fun, but let's be honest, it can also be seriously overwhelming. You sit down to make a card, pull out a few prints you think go together, and then suddenly your card looks like a circus tent. If that sounds familiar, I've got you. Today I'm sharing my foolproof formula for combining pattern paper on cards, and once you try it, you'll never look at your stash the same way again. I call it the rule of three, and it works whether you're pulling from matching paper pads or diving into your scrap drawer. Let's start with step one. Choose one bold pattern. This is the star of the show. It can be floral, plaid, large-scale polka dots, whatever stands out and gets you excited. Don't be afraid to go loud here. Step two, you're going to add one subtle pattern. Now you need something to support the star of the show. Look for tone-on-tone prints, small dots, lines, text, anything that doesn't compete. It adds interest without adding chaos. Now step three, ground it with a neutral. Finally, pull in a neutral, white, craft, black cardstock, or even a soft tone that matches the others in the pattern paper. This gives the eye a place to rest and helps everything feel balanced.
All right, we're gonna make two cards today. I'm gonna show you this card here where I picked the pattern paper already out of a paper pad, and then I'm gonna show you how to pick from random scraps in your stash. So I'm cutting each one of these papers here to 1 inch, and I'm gonna cut them in increments of a 1/2 inch as we go along. So 1 by 4.5, 1 by 4, and 1 by 3.5. So each strip is a 1/2 inch shorter than the other. I always find too that there's a lot of people that have joined card making in recent years, and a lot of the times us video creators skip over the basics. So I wanted to show you how to cut a fishtail here. So what I'm doing is I'm using my grid lines on my glass mat here to measure a 1/2 inch, so the center of each one of these strips. And I'm marking it off with a line. And the line is on the back of the cardstock, obviously, so I can use a pen. I don't need to use a pencil or anything like that. Now you can grab a ruler or a sheet of cardstock, and I like to just eyeball it, the center here, and I draw a line upwards. This line can be as long as you want it to be. It doesn't really matter. And next up, I'm just going to do this for all of the strips, obviously. Then I'm going to grab a pair of scissors, and I'm going to start at the very corner of the cardstock and cut as far up as I want. But what you want is that cut, you want to line it up so that they meet together at the same point. So what I do is I cut from one corner upwards, and then I align my scissors when I go to the next corner with that cut line. And then you cut a perfect fishtail every single time. Now this particular card layout is probably one of the easiest ones you can do in card making. And so I'm going to grab all 3 of these strips. I'm just going to lay them kind of, stack them one on top of the other, overlapping ever so slightly. And then I'm just going to create a nice little layout here of the pattern paper. Now this is a good idea when it comes to really busy patterns and things like that, because you don't have pattern paper everywhere. You have a lot of white space, so it helps kind of tone down all the busyness, and it's one of my favorite layouts to use up scraps. And you know, I was thinking of grabbing a stamp set and sentiments and all those things, but this paper pack actually came with a whole bunch of die cuts with sentiments already on them. So why not just use what you have? The colors are going to match anyway, and that's the nice thing about working with pattern paper pads, is that everything kind of coordinates nicely together and there's not a whole lot of thinking involved. But what about what happens when you just grab scraps out of your stash versus grabbing from a paper pad? Is it possible to use this particular step? Now, I don't have a ton of pattern paper. All my 6x6 pattern paper fits in this box. And after my recent month focusing on pattern paper here, I hardly have any pattern paper left. I mean, half of this paper here is just like glitter cardstock and metallic cardstock, not even pattern paper. So let's start with the rule of 3s again. I'm going to grab myself a bold print. This is the one that's probably the easiest one to pick out. And then I'm going to grab a subtle print and a neutral print. And don't forget that your neutral print doesn't have to be coordinating cardstock. It can be something like a wood grain pattern. That's one of my favorite go-tos. Off screen, I just cut these down to 1.5 inch strips. And eventually, I realized as I was lining these up that the wood grain wasn't my favorite, so I ended up switching it out. It was too overpowering for a neutral. So I opted for a white wood grain instead, and I think this looks a lot better. Another beginner tip when it comes to trying to make sure you have even spacing is glue the center first. Work in odd numbers of strips, it's a lot easier. And then it's a lot easier to place the other strips. So if I have my center down, then it's easier to place and have even spacing between the top and the bottom rather than trying to eyeball it and measure absolutely everything on this card. So I went ahead and trimmed absolutely everything down, and now I'm all finished. I have decided to add a nice large die cut as the focal point for this card. So I die cut this friend die that I recently got from Concord and Ninth, and I'm cutting it again, choosing neutral cardstock here. So white to tie in the card base and gold as just a way to help it all pop. The nice thing about these is the letters are nice and really big. Usually I don't buy dies like this that have all separate letters because it's a little bit tedious to glue them all, but because the letters are really big, it actually wasn't too bad. And you have your die cut frame there as an example, so you know exactly where to put them all. The last step I did was just add some gold confetti to the card just to help the gold pop and tie it all in.
And if you're nervous about getting it wrong, don't worry. Imperfect combos still teach you what doesn't work. And that's part of the fun. Now it's your turn. I want you to go into your stash, pick one bold, one subtle, and one neutral pattern, and try making a card. You'll be surprised how quickly it comes together once you stop overthinking things. And when you're done, come post it in my Facebook group, Justine's Crafty Corner. We've got a whole community there ready to cheer you on, and I'd love to see your take on the rule of 3. There's a link in the video description if you're not already a member, so come join the fun.